same set of strings on this guitar for so long, but I can't force myself to change it. Love it. Anyway, all the way up, all the way back, and just keep doing that vibrato at the time, right? When you get all the way back down, now you're going to keep the vibrato frequency the same. That's going to be locked with your tempo, but you're going to knock the note duration down. So there you go.
Vibrato, do you play eighth notes always, or do you switch up the? Because I know
triplets. Yeah, you can play triplets against or whatever, but just pick a frequency that's in time, right? And then the trick is to start slow, let your hand be trained just to stay in that groove, and then cross that threshold so that you're changing notes quicker than you're changing vibrato frequency. So your hand's going, right? I'm going down on that note. The hand keeps doing this.
Notes generally flat throughout the, like are most notes like in whatever range generally flat on the guitar because of the equal temperament, or some of them sharp as well?
This turns out to be kind of easy. Actually, it's not. There's only the basic setup for our thing here for the triads is the basic setup for the triads thing. Like I was saying before, the purpose of the temperament was to get the greatest number of usable triads from the fewest numbers of notes, right? The fewest number of pitches. So everything you can think of everything as just being made of fifths and thirds, and that's it. And then they're applied above and below. You go up a fifth, or down a fifth, or up a third, or down. You know, like a circle of fifths.
Sure.
You have a circle of thirds too. Same thing. Or you could have a circle of fifths and a circle of thirds simultaneously, and you'd have, you know, a circle of
life
of triads. And the difference between getting those notes in tune, you know, to your ear, or to get them landing in the temperament is always the same. It's the same offsets. So the fifths in equal temperament are tiny amount flat. They're 2 cents sharp. So the inversion of the fifth to fourth is 2 cents sharp, right? You know. So if you were going to land with some authority on the fourth, you would be shaving it a little. You'd be knocking a few cents off. If you wanted the fifth, you'd be like lifting a little bit. It's not immediately obvious with 2 cents, though. It's such a tiny, tiny interval. Normally, you would think in our hearing, we're good for a couple of cents, 3 or 4. So So if you have a whole step, hey, Russ? Yeah. Turn up that volume of the band. Okay. If you have 4 cents, right, 2/5 up, right, it's like, do you hear that? Right? And now here's the thing, because we all play enough that we accept these ranges of notes, you know, where it's like, oh, that's close enough, I get it. I know what the guy means, I know what you're talking about. Yeah, that's a whole step. But then you go back and you listen and you go, well, is that a whole step? Right? So, there's A, right? On my guitar, my nice Stratocaster, they play all the time with nice big strings. Here's B. And if we had a little tuner going, we'd probably see that as A, straight up. Straight up, there it goes high. But if I was going to play that, if I was just going to play Do, Re, and B, I'd play A and 2, and then I would know that this B is supposed to be 2/5 up harmonically using 2. So I'm going to take the 5th off that A string right here. Right? That's got nothing to do with the frets, and you know it's good. That's just where the string's vibrating. And I'm going to get a 5th, perfect 5th of that. Oh, but that's not it, man. That is, do you hear that? That's flat. Watch what I do. I just lean it over this way just enough that that's doing its 5th. So, that's a whole step. That's a major hold. Anybody hear the difference? Yeah, so here's what we're used to, and here's what's in tune. So here's Do, Re, Mi. According to frets. And here, 2/5 up, and then for the so when I'm falling on that whole step, dragging my hand back that way, just enough to give it a lift. If I was coming down on it with the English going the other way, you know, I mean that's significantly flat. In the scheme of things, if there's other instruments playing, that note's going to be not one that you're going to want to enjoy as a lingering melody. You're going to be like, get me off of this one. This is just going, you know what I mean? So you want to try and listen and get to fall. And that's just English landing that even in the scale-wise passages, differentiating between major and minor whole tones by using the vibratos in this direction. Now, so there was 2 adjustments there. There was one up and one down. So, and like I just said on the 5ths, you want to raise, you know, if you're compounding 5ths, you're going to want to raise those a little bit. If you're compounding 4ths, you're going to lower those a little bit. If it's major 3rds, you're going to drop them that 14 cents. The minor 3rds, you're going to lift them. So it's most of it right there. 5ths, 2 cents, it'll never show on a trotting horse. Just keep playing. Major 3rds, as lingering melody tones, you're going to want to relax them. You're not going to want to, you know. Get that down there. Now there, I picked that 7th up. the second. So there's a range of notes that goes to maybe a quarter tone, on any one of these pitches. Go ahead.
So the one thing I'm missing is how do you lower the pitch?
You push on a string this way. You're doing the vibrato this way, and when you freeze the cycle going this way.
So you're kind of pushing the string towards the bridge.
Bunching the string up towards the bridge.
Does that work on the first and second string as well, where the strings are more slippery?
It works poorly on the plain strings in the low positions. It works awesome in the middle of the guitar.
On the wrap strings.
Up on the higher ones. But it just depends what you want to do with the pitch. You know what I'm saying? So if I was looking for a G, it was going to be a lingering melody tone on a major seventh chord. I'd grab it up here and drop it. Right? So nice tone. If it was going to be a minor third, I'd grab it here and lift.
I see.
So the difference is not which string as far as how easy it's, how close are you to the bridge? The closer you are to the bridge, the easier it is to change the pitch. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, when you get more grip too.
The friction of the string.
On one string. And it's easier in the
Oh, okay,
middle
so
to
it's
borrow
both.
some tension from one side.
So it's both. It's the wound strings are easier and closer to the bridge.
Sure. Well, no, I think it's not even that closer to the bridge. Just more in the middle. It's just easier it's easier to borrow that. From your side string to make those adjustments. I make a little quick chart here. Quick chart. Here we see which way these notes are going.
So, quick comment, something I read that you wrote a bunch of years ago that's actually affected my playing, for better or worse. So to the exact point that you said about the vibrato, you were in this thing you wrote, you were talking about how hard you press the note. And I've always known that because I'm an engineer, nerd, but when I read what you wrote, it really started, because I used to press the strings a lot harder than I do now. And if you just press a string and hold a note and then press it harder, you'll hear the exact same thing that you're talking about. Pitch go up or down a couple cents.
Yep.
And so just be aware of that, folks, depending on how hard you press the string in addition to the vibrato too. So both things will affect the pitch of the note.
Okay, so here's the deal in a nutshell. So here's C, right? So here we're going up in the fifth, and then I can say down in fifth, right? And then for each one of these notes on this spine of fifth, you're going to have a third, right? So there's an additional spine, a fifth, and then down below them, so if this is where your chord roots are, right? Then see that C triad, C major triad, C minor triad. See how it's doing that? Right? Okay. All of the these are overtones. Like if this was your root, you know, if you had a G string, then that would be your fifth there at the seventh fret, and that would be the fifth part of it behind the fourth fret, right? So everything going this way is overtones. Everything going this way is the reciprocal value of those overtones. So as these are going to be all flat, these are going to want to come sharp to be in tune. Now, so that's a good key to the tune. And the tone.
Does that kind of let you know which notes you want to take up or down?
Exactly. In case you were in doubt. What's above and what's below? Let me do a little bit below, because below is easier to get to on some of the here's a lick. That one I probably got Jimi Hendrix record there on the floor with the speakers for headphones. 1983 of Merman, I should turn the view, whatever it was. One way you wish. As soon as I heard that little pentatonic thing with the little lift at the end, I was like, what is that? How comes that works? And the note comes up and it sounds better. It sounds better than on the fret. You leave it on the fret and it's like, it just kind of dies there. But lifting it up, and what is that? And it's just bringing it into tune. As a third with the fifth. And there's your just minor chord. That's the flat. So that third one, it's just telling you that third one's going to come up. It's going to be in tune when you're picking it up a little bit. So it's making getting that nice little doorbell sound there. But if I just leave it at the fret, it's there. It's just not as convincing. You're looking for it. And so on all of them, just the same way, right, that I was knocking a couple of cents off those major intervals to make it work. Same way I'm knocking those off on a minor, I'm going to put it back on. So if I want to get if I want that F to stand up, I'm going to make sure that it's a major third below that A, and that's what I'm going to use to check that F is a major third below A. So I've got to pick it up a little bit, so it's going to be here. Hear that? Major third. If you tune it, you go, I can fix that. Fix it there. So when I'm in these minor, here I'm picking up that F. Okay, so all those minor notes are going to work.
One little question. You know when you're in open tune,
Right.
open D, I always tune third to hear sharp sounds, but does that have anything to do with all this? Then I tune the third flat.
2/3 flat.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so that's kind of the same.
Yeah. same thing, right? So I'm saying that what you want to be doing is following the harmonic series of the string. You know, now you can. Here's some frets, great. No, we don't care what the frets say. We care what the string says. So we go to the string and we say, you know, like, what's a fifth? And if the string says that's a fifth, well then, by golly, if I want a fifth from there, I'll make that sound again. And I won't make it. And say it's two fifths. It's not. If you measured it, it would be triplets. These fifths are triplets. Thirds are confusing. Quintuples of vibration. Nothing. There's no Hail Atlantis hippie guesswork. It's just, this is the fucking temper. The fifths are tempered by this much, above and below. Those values are reciprocal. You know, if you're shaving this much off this one, you got to pay it back over here for the fifths and the thirds, and that covers it. It's just fifths and thirds up and down, and that's the secret to the intonation for most of the stuff. Okay, there's sevenths that we use as guitar players. That I mean, if you ever listen to any decent vocal group sing a seventh chord, then you heard it in tune seventh. It's not the it's not that one. It's like all that great seventh stuff that people I said that stuff too. So we hear this stuff all the time. So we get the guitar and play it, and what we do, we hit these notes, and we just think, oh, I know what I mean, or you know, you get the idea, or whatever. And then you wonder, what is it that's so compelling about some people's playing? They're like real, like allows it to stick. You know, we hear the note, and it's just like, oh, you know, or it gets you really hooked. And it's that. It's either by design or just the feeling that the person's getting the stuff lined up with, you know, the bigger picture of the harmony in the sound. You know, not sort of the theoretical. I think you're satisfied with the harmony. You actually get the harmony. On this chart over here, where we just have the thirds and the fifths, and we're not seeing the sevenths. The sevenths would look like this. I guess the overtones are still all going this way. Then try to put a color up here. Okay. And all of the note. Or how the original seventh chord. So you see now here in the key of C, now we've added this additional dimension of sevens, and now we have this minor triad here in the resolved tonic area of C, where we used to just have like C chord. Now we have an E flat minor chord, a 33 set flat E flat minor chord that's just smacked onto the thing, and the 33 set flat minor chord. That's the rock and roll. That's the whole the intonation of the blues and the rock thing is all right. Is all right there, you know. Dig, I'm telling you this because there's a bunch of stuff on the guitar that musically in your head is only going to stick if it's played flat. You know what I mean? And if you're trying to play that stuff sharp, you're just going to go. Well, that sounds like ass. Why am I doing that? Why am I playing this thing? Also, any of you guys play and thinking jazz? Are you thinking like jazz? Inside, outside, tonic, non-tonic differentiation, you know, that kind of thing, right? In and out, right? This, you can also, it's amazing. Just all this really is this is called a lattice. This is lattice notation, where you're showing the position of the pitches in the overtone series and how they're connected to the other pitches in the temperament. Ordinarily, if this was like a strictly intonation thing, these letters would be replaced by the ratios that represent the pitches. But this is okay for us because we're just using this to adjust for. It's just a technique, but it's giving us the intonation and it's showing us what's resolved and what's unresolved. Anybody here have enough jazz background to recognize this C, G, D, E, B, F sharp thing as being Lydian? That would be your Lydian 1 chord, right? Anybody see that? You know what I'm talking about? Right?
I can't remember that, but I know.
Okay, so here's your 1, everything resolved Lydian thing. Now, I'm staying on the same spine of fifths. If I took this fifth and took the reciprocals of these notes that are the resolution, the overtones, and just flipped them down, just reversed the polarity to thirds, then I have a G chord with all the altered color in it. You know, A flat, E flat, D flat, sharp 5, you know, flat 5, flat 9, flat 13, right? So all that's happening when you're going in and out of the harmony is you're taking these reciprocal, unresolved values and bam, flipping them up into the overtonal values, okay? So part of learning to think about the thing in these overtonal terms, like, well, here's my note and what's in tune with it, just by thirds and fifths, it's going to give you a guide through the harmony so that when you're on a note, you know what its counterpart, might be, you know, kind of in and out, you know, nice balance there. But now, let me go back to the to this triangle of flat sevenths that landed on the thing there.
So it's kind of connected to Pat Martino's thing about that's
No, it's not. No, Pat Martino's thing is beautiful as it is in the execution and the concept and in the man and how he plays and what his life and everything like that. This is tuning. This is just tuning. You know what I mean?
Okay.
And it's gonna relate because it relates to all of that stuff. But there's a whole bunch of Pat Martino's thing, God bless him, that is mystical. And there's nothing mystical about this. This is entirely practical. If I got sucked up by a fucking flying saucer right now and they handed me a pile of wood and said, build a fucking piano and tune it or we're blowing up the world, I'd build a piano and tune it. Here's your piano, let me go. And then let me go. There's a piano, because that's the fucking trick right there. It's just how it's, you know, it's how it's tuned, right? And the whole thing, you can just look at it as being that. Because if you're focused on, if ultimately what you're focused on in your execution is the sound and it being in harmony, you're going to be executing something worth hearing. If all you're interested in your execution is wiggling your fingers, half the shit you play is going to sound like crap because you're not paying attention to the sound. So all I'm saying is here's one way that you can, you know, like very physically, you know, formally look at the sound and say, am I in agreement with this? You know, and then if you are, great. If you don't like it, fine. But at least, you know, at least know where you're starting. So here's That's the harmonic seventh. See that, right? Okay, you got it, right? If you look on the string, when you get back there, that's the spot. It's a third of the way down from the fret, okay? That's the spot for your seventh, right? So when I'm playing blues stuff and I want to use the seventh, I use the natural seventh. I'm backed off to that spot, harmonic. You know, it's like, oh, what's wrong with that seventh? That's not what that seventh is for. I mean, that seventh, the one that shows up down here is 2/5 down from the tonic, right? I mean, the purpose of having that seventh down there in that tuning, in that three-limit Pythagorean 2/5 away from the tonic thing, is to allow that seventh to close. Your C7 chord collapses onto this tonic of F, okay? It's a functional seventh chord. It wants to resolve to a chord of fifth away. This is done, it's resolved. That's your one chord. You know, it's not trying to resolve to that's, you know, any blues song, any James Brown song, you play D9 for 20 minutes and then there's no G at the end. It's like, so we're hearing that stuff, the rock and roll stuff, that assumes the seventh chord is tonic. It assumes all of those notes are like that. So your seventh is down here, right? And then there's the seventh of the fifth below. And you guys have super guitars? They do this. You have to fix it occasionally. These little pieces wander up. So there's a separate four chord. Hear that? Everybody see how far back that is, right? There's the same thing on the So now, right? So when we're playing blues stuff, just exactly what I showed you before about that 5-limit minor third, right? It's a minor third, but play it sharp like that Jimi Hendrix thing, and it sounded right. Now we go over here to seventh, and instead of being from fifth, instead of being a third, go low. But in this case, man, they're almost a quarter tone apart. The right minor third is not the right, blues minor third. It's down there. That's what So, all of that kind of tough sounding stuff is that very much flattened seventh partial stuff. Did I go too far with that seventh? Or did you get that? Okay.
Is this why when a blues guy really wants to lay into a note and add emphasis, he'll bend the string a lot? Like there's a lot of guitar players that naturally play certain notes because you can get the right note.
The pitch is just on the guitar, just not, they're not close. If you either have to be out of tune to begin with. We're used to hearing that. Natural minor third is major. The sub minor third in the blues thing is it's the seventh of the four. That's how you fire. You hear that? It's like here, without getting a whole lot more into it. In a very general way. Along with this idea where you can use the vibrato rate as constant, and then play across to the note control, up and down in pitch, vibrato frequencies, kind of thing. The kind of opposite polarity exercise for that is just sit with the instrument in your lap. Don't do it. Don't do anything. Just sit there and gut check. Like really like ask yourself, what am I feeling? Until you're good and fucking empty. And then just let your hand fall on the thing and see what happens. Because you'll feel something immediately, right? The difference in how you feel between no sound and sound is like, it's ridiculous, a profound physiological change. You can try it yourself right now in one ear all at once. If you sit there and just like unclutter yourself for a minute, it only takes 30 seconds, and then just let your hand drop on the string. When you hear that sound, something just whips to attention in a certain way. There's a quality to that attention, and it's different. There's a little different quality to every sound. Every resonance has has something just all to itself that makes it what it is. And while we have to do some of this physical stuff, to get the thing to fall to hand, and maybe we need some models, like visually to look at to understand the stuff. Really what you're trying to understand is just like, what happens? What's going on when the sound hits? What do I feel? When I make a sound. So, that's a lot of what I do anymore after all these years of playing is just that. I mean, I tune and I try and be sensitive to how I feel, like when the sound hits, and then that's it. There's not a whole lot more you can do without just being like pretending you're doing something. You're like making it up. You're like, I think I'm doing this. Really, you pay attention, and hit the note, or you're not. So, that's how I see it. Any big dumb questions about this, and then we'll try and apply it to some of your own stuff and some of this. Yeah.
Big dumb question. So once you figure out the specifics of the guitar you're playing, and you change strings or humidity, I mean, do you constantly have to find that sweet spot on the guitar, or is it?
No, the beauty of the thing is it just doesn't have anything to do with the instrument at all. It's like, this is, I mean, while it may appear that we're outwardly tuned, the process is very much inwardly tuned. And I must have worked on the steel, you know, on the lap guitar, trying to find a major third. I probably did it for 5 years. I get up every morning, I make a big pot of coffee, you know, roll a joint, sit there and go, you know, and I never got it. I was still sitting there 5 years later, and I'm like, all kind of like wired, going, oh, I can't fucking do this.
You mean it just didn't sound right?
Until I just went, feeling that sound in me, right? And as you know what that feels like, what's a third feel? You know, what's a third up or down feel like? Because it's got the qualities are the same, and the temperament, as much as it's a pain in the ass to talk about, because we don't all have the technical vocabulary to understand exactly what I'm saying immediately because it's so specialized. It's simple. And the resonances are simple, you know, and they're beautiful. If you just sit and listen to them and learn them and see how you feel when they happen, pretty soon when the band plays, you know where it is for you. And you're in. You know what I mean? Well, I know where all the harmonics are, you know, I mean, in my own thing, when I hear the band, I want to go for that resonance, then I'm in. I'm right there. And I know what it feels like just when it hits, drop on it, bam, you know, and I hit that note. Maybe I got to stand there for a minute before it occurs to me that I can play it. So I might not be doing a bunch of fancy stuff, but when I hit a note, if you see me play, you know a lot of times when I hit a note, it stays fucking hit. It's like, oh, that's a note for you. Well, that's what I'm doing. Just trying to get specifically to those pitches, and it's not a mechanical thing. You know what I mean? You have to have some, you hear it. Then it doesn't matter
I
what
played
you're
with
playing.
this lady that played down, real down stuff. I was on electric, and I would do that a lot. Just slightly go south. It's kind of pathetic, you know. And it worked.
Yeah,
it's really great.
It's a note. Yeah, there's okay. And at the end of the day, too, the reason this is not like some end game or something. This looking in this direction or just investigation in this direction will give you some clues about being able to hear and find like the basic stuff, right? That's not on the frets already. Just tune yourself up a little bit, and then once you get to a place where you can make deliberate little adjustments, then you can make deliberate little adjustments. And it doesn't matter what they are. It doesn't matter if they're, like playing this pitch in tune or that pitch in tune. You're making your little adjustments that make your thing, unique and special to you. In the same way that Garcia's thing, would be unique to him, or Derek Trucks, or any of these guys where we listen and we can tell that they're hitting the note. Obviously, there's going to be a certain amount of that just anyway, because everybody has a different body, a different physical balance of resistances. My finger might be shorter than yours. I'm working through a different level when I'm shaking it like this or whatever. Just the size of the body and how it relates to the instrument, the gauges, strings, all that stuff, the scale, and all of that is going to play into, creating the physical limits. Those are the physical limits that will be responsible for some of the sound. But you can, within that, you know, obviously make a huge amount of difference for yourself and for the music by applying yourself specifically against it. Anyway?
So, have you written any of this down? And is there like a, you know, written material on this kind of stuff?
I have giant piles that are written down that I occasionally threaten to publish, and then as I go, I realize that there's like this little bit more, you know, a little bit more just beyond the thing, and I'm torn always between trying to do something that technically just represents the what happens with the strings and the frets together. You know what I mean? Because those are two different systems. I mean, this is an important point. If you look at the guitar, you know, the frets are obvious because it's sitting there. You know, you can't ignore them. But we tend to not think about what's going on with the string, you know, and the way the string vibrates. And the way the string vibrates is another system. So once you get a little bit into the frets and you start looking at what the string is doing, that's where, you know, like the real, I think that's where the music lessons are, just sort of in different interval sizes that are presented by the string, because that's the stuff that's actually musical function.
You wrote an article on Guitar Player a couple years ago that delved into a lot of this stuff.
Yeah, I did some, did a little, what do you call it, master class in Guitar Player days and talked about some intonation stuff.
Just as a resource if you want to.
Yeah, you could go there, but any music history that you want to read will help, and any checking out any other musical culture is a huge help. Like everybody should go, I'll write it down on the board before I leave. If you don't already have it bookmarked, you want to go every day to Atlas of plucked instruments.
I just found that.
Online. Go to Atlas of plucked instruments and all over the world, man. There's guys playing incredible string instrument stuff that has nothing to do with what we think is right. And this shit is so beautiful and so good and so raw and so fantastically what the guitar and its history and what people are about. You know, we are in a bit of a little cultural backwater here, right now in the 20th century again, with the curriculum handed down by flunky from the piano players that have to and the pop culture thing. We don't get how really wild and cool a lot of the string instrument playing out there is. If you go online and look for Vongco, VONGCO, which is the Vietnamese folk music, all these non-English speaking motherfuckers that we bombed back into the Stone Age, they all have music that's so much more advanced than our own. It's ridiculous. The Vietnamese folk music is some of the most out shit you've ever heard in your life. Deep scallops on the guitar and the strings real slack, and they'll play, like the ensembles will play, and it just sounds like a giant catfight. You can't believe it. Not a recognizable note. And then you listen to it a while. After a while, you get it, and it's like, oh my god, they're playing this beautiful music. It's got nothing to do with our pitches on the guitar. Crazy inflections. The Chinese, fantastic stuff. All of Persia, unbelievable beautiful music. Anywhere where they don't speak English and they have some different stuff, or they have some, have some more tradition in their culture. Beautiful stuff. So I urge you to check that out, because that would definitely, get you into finding some, where some of those pitches are. Sort of keeping with the idea that there's other cultures that are making sounds, and going back to the jazz idea of inside and outside, sort of consonance and dissonance. We have a lot of concepts in our music of consonance and dissonance that are just the products of religious discrimination in the Middle Ages, shit like that. It's got nothing to do with music. When European music was, just getting up in the morning and getting its pants on, they first started writing the stuff down. Those Catholic monks that were doing most of that work, in an effort to distance the European music from the Islamic music, they didn't want the Muslim thing going on. We wound up with a predominance of modes, starting with the whole step. When you hear that, it's like automatically snake charmer. Don't do that. So just as a culture, we have a problem, like with a flat second, like where the flat second is. One of the reasons we have a problem with where the flat second is just because we've been told since we were little kids that this is a cartoon, alien music. Is that in the temperament, the flat second comes out in a really ugly place. And as a matter of fact, all of that stuff down there on the unresolved side, on the not so sunny side of the street, comes out in a funny place. So if you're trying to learn the altered dominant sounds, which is one of the hurdles you cross if you're trying to learn to play jazz, you have to learn to identify these chords and hear the sound of them. Half the battle there is that you've got to ignore how badly out of tune these sounds are, right? So at the same time you learn to accept these harmonies, you're just damaging your own, sense of pitch, because the equal temperament neither renders the tonic very clearly or the dissonance very clearly. The dissonance is murky. Good dissonance is nothing but discernible. It's dissonant because you can tell it's like in some funny place, but when it's just in some blurry place, it's just mud. So we have a whole bunch of jazz mud because we're not clear how to relate to some of these intervals. And like I was saying before, it's just like thirds and fifths, right? So how do you relate something like a flat second, which we would put here? So from the fifth partial, this is just the way it is, like over in Persia or Northern India or whatever.
How flat is it? How far down?
is I'm playing a major third above a major third, right? So when I fold the drone back onto that, I'm here. Yeah, that's the note. No arguing that as being a third. You know, so it's like hearing the pentamerist, it's hearing the major third in those intervals. That's the trick. That sounds funny, but
I like it.
it's a third on top of a third. It's kind of like a super third. You know what I mean? It's not like this funny flat second thing. It's related to the third. So when you're there in the major thirds. Yeah, the flat second where we put it, it's an ugly note. But there's a beautiful version of it that's really perfect. So think about that, and the next time you're playing a slide, or the next time you're forced to deal with, you know, in some jazz chords, the intervals of a flat second, you know, part of, to get out of the harmonic space back into interval space, part of the difficulty I think people have with dealing with some of the altered sounds is they relate to them as some chromaticized version of some other thing, you know what I mean, which is what's implied by altered. It's like, well, it was this, and now it's this, something else. We changed the before. I don't buy this alteration thing. I don't think it's necessary to relate. I mean, I know it's in all the literature. I don't think it's necessary to relate to anything as a subset of something else, unless it is legitimately a subset of something else. But if you're talking about the scale and changing every note in it and saying it's altered, it's like, well, duh. All. You can
So-
compare it to one.
So for that flat 2, is it lower than what you get on regular
much,
fret, or is it
yeah.
quite?
You're shaving off. You're shaving off 16, 14, 15, 16 cents to get there, and then you're shaving off an additional. It's easier than right, but that would be that's the morning robin. You know, it's kind of a sound that we don't even have. It's sort of like an augmented root or something like that. And the visual is just the sun just getting above the water.
How did
So it's going to be like between 6 and 8 beats quicker than the tonic, and that's where it is. You'll hear that. It'll be like.
How did you relate that to the thirds?
Pardon?
You said the flat second is like 2/3 on top of each other or something?
It's an inversion. It's an inversion of 2/3 on top of each other. 2/3 on top of each other would be flat sixth. Right. So as a sixth, I'm saying that the flat second harmonizes with the third. Right. And then if you want to find the useful flat second that makes it a beautiful note in the predominance of modes in those other cultures, you want to first look for the third and then the note that anybody hip to the Indians that talk about Shruti? They got a 22 Shruti system. You know about the Shruti thing where they're doing the microtones?
I can imagine.
They're it comes up. It's mysterious. It's explained nowhere very well. You know what I mean? Like if you sat there for 30 years with the guy, eventually you'd go, oh, it's bullshit, you know. But apparently what it means is that there are some intervals, smaller intervals, inside these bigger intervals that we're using, where basically you can go up to a note, and the first time you get to that quality, you're there, or you can go down to the note descending, and you'll be at different notes, but in that same quality. So we're saying that the flat second has a quality, but it's two different notes if we're descending to it or ascending to it. If we're trying to just grab it out of the air as a harmony to something that's present in the air, we listen to, we listen for that, and then we tune to that, and we're there as a sixth, right? But you see where that is. You see how far back it is, right? Now, if I was coming from, so if I'm coming from below, you see how quickly we're getting from tonic to, it's like, oh, okay, by there, you know, it's like, oh, you're up a half step, aren't you? Right? Now, if I was going down and I'm trying to get to that same territory, what you're hearing as a third descending is not going to make it all the way to the fret. Right? So as I'm descending to that third, now if A was the note I was trying to work from. Right? So that's the pentameters. Okay. Now, if I was playing more like a straight up, you know, to 5 limit, you know, minor mode, you'd be here.
There's differences in there.
Yeah, yeah. Or in either case, and you know what I was saying before about there being, you know, major, minor whole steps and half steps? So, coming up, it's a minor half step. It's short, you know, and then coming down, you know, swacker. Come here. That's to show me he was so strong because he ate his broccoli.
It's my mom's idea.
Yeah. You wonder what these people are doing, huh? They all came to see you chew your toy. Chew it, swagger. Okay, and no punching anybody in the balls.
Is that a warning to us?
He smacked Jay Lane so hard the other day. Jay Lane walks in and Ryan just walks up to him and goes, pow! For the next half hour, Jay's going, that's not cool, man. That's not cool. Really fucking nailed him. Anyway, so there's you can just look at it like that there are bigger and smaller half steps that you can use, you know, depending where you're at. And sometimes that's as simple as I'm gonna stop on my way up as soon as I get to something that reminds me of minor, right? Like if you stopped at the first place going up, minor, you'd be there. You'd be in that blues minor thing. If you were descending, you know, and you're trying to play in tune, you'd probably wind up there with the a third down from the 5th or a 7th above the 4th.
So was this something that you had to like learn to think about, or it just kind of came to you by thinking about the tone that you wanted to create?
Oh, I thought, you know, I was just fooling around with the guitar and realized that there were times when I would get a note where both sides of the string were in tune and it was making a nice harmony, but it wasn't over a fret.
Right.
And I was like, how comes all the nice sounds are not on the, I was like, oh yeah. So it took me a while. Because, you know, again, in terms of there being a curriculum, there's not a whole bunch of this all in one place. It's kind of spread out, you know. We just happened, we grew up in this time, you know, like technologically, where we got to the electric guitar kind of the same time as we got you know, an Africanized version of the European music. So we had all the regular chords, and we had these instruments, and then we added this additional harmonic where we're using these seventh sounds that the Africans used on top of the thing that weren't on instruments. You know, we didn't have a place for them exactly. So stuff was being bent, pushed around, and it pushed the harmonies around, and it pushed the tonalities around. And so, I mean, just as a culture, we haven't had long enough to deal with that the electric guitar, specifically the electric guitar, is played in a really different fashion for a really different reason than all of these other instruments, you know, and it needs a little bit of its own attention. And I think that this is the attention that it needs. You know, like what do the frets represent? What does the string represent? You know, and then how you reconcile those in the performance. You can play any note, any chord, any tuning, anything at all on the guitar. It's not fixed, even the tiniest bit, and plays all that blues stuff, the seventh partial sound. You know, with such, I mean, this is even with the heavy. You know, even with the heavy strings, you still get. You know, they're just not. It's not Mozart. It's something else.
How do you think effects have played into tonality and overtones, especially with like distortion and like some of the stuff that Jimi Hendrix used to do with?
Oh yeah, he was just hearing it naturally. It's not something that people don't hear naturally. Like I'm saying, there's entire other cultures and just very naturally going places with it that we aren't, and part of the reason that we're not is because we have this education system that we do for music, which is very, very much built on the piano, and that when you have frets, like if the 12-tone thing is like sitting there, then it's 12-tone, and it's like it's not really.
But there's other places. I mean, the seventh thing I never was hip to before. But if you hang around a bunch of violin players, they don't play equal temperament. They play a just temperament, just like he was doing.
Well, yeah. I mean, you don't. Well,
or a sax section. You don't play the note straight on, or it'll sound wrong.
No, I mean the only place it really shows up. The only place that the equal temperament really shows up as equal temperament is as a piano tuning. Organs aren't tuned that way. Guitars can't play that way. The deal with equal temperament is, in order to tune it properly, you have to count beats. You can't just hear a note and say, in my head, I recognize that this is simultaneously the fifth of G minor and the third of B flat major. And it's like, you can't tune to something you're not hearing. You got to hear the notes together, and you go, okay, good. And then you go, not so good. And you pull it. You go, okay, good. And then you go back there and you go, not good. And you pick it up a little bit. But we're constantly tweaking on it to make it work, and dealing with those commas in the tuning. The purpose of the temperament is to get rid of those commas, so that any one of these notes can stand for any.
Is it hard for you to interact with electronic keyboard players?
Oh, not at all. No.
They don't totally mess this up?
No. Yeah, no. If you couldn't, I mean, it's all good. It's just we get to pick the notes. On the piano, the thing is set up so that every note is modulatory, so you can play in all the keys and blah, blah, blah. But then when you go and actually sing the thing or play the thing or something like that, there's nothing wrong with Ella Fitzgerald singing like with Oscar Peterson or something like that. You know what I mean? And there'll be an upright bass and a fucking coronet or God knows what else. All totally different intonation systems. There'll be plucked strings and keys and reed instruments and wind instruments and bowed instruments and vocalists, and they're all in different places. I'm pointing out two things. One is that our music has evolved from this place of being strictly 5 limit, where a 7th chord was only ever a functional dominant chord, 1 7th chord, 1 tritone per key, and it was never a tonic chord, to the music that we have today, where the 7th chord is assumed tonic, and even the simplest music has multiple tritones in a resolved key area, like a blues, which never existed before. So we have these Africanized musical sounds, and a variable pitched instrument that's being presided over by a fixed pitched curriculum of music that never had that 7th in it. So there's a whole bunch of stuff that you're not going to get about the guitar from the standard piano, and sadly, a bunch of the jazz stuff. It just does not include what makes the guitar attractive to those people. Right?
Right.
What's wrong with these people?
So I notice that you don't have any trouble at all finding those higher harmonics on the string. Is that because you're willing to go between the frets to find it? Is that why I have a hard time finding those?
Oh no, I got used to seeing them, because they're proportionate to the thing, and then they're gonna show up, in the same places. They're just even. They're just sitting on the string.
So I just need to play with it more. Is that what you're saying?
The string's divided in thirds. The string's divided in 5 parts. The string's divided in 7 parts. I just got used to seeing it. But if you do start looking at it and you realize that, oh, there's a different setup on here that's telling me what the pitches are, and then here's a setup here that's telling me what pitch can stand for those pitches. Okay, then you start to get it. Oh, I need to make offsets in these ranges to get back to the note. You know what I mean? That it worked out the way it did, that there are these overtones, that sound resolved to us, and then there's the reciprocal values of them that sound unresolved. It's hard to say exactly why this is, but it's the same way for people all over the world. It's just the way that people are wired, right? And very, very early on, when people had to get something together, just sort of falling out of the trees and sort of getting some agriculture together, whatever, navigation, all of these same principles were just the observations of the natural world. And all of our musical knowledge was once part of all of our astronomy, and everything else. It was all one knowledge, and it got increasingly specialized and kind of compartmentalized, so you don't see the stuff as readily all around you. But the basic idea is polarity. That everywhere in the musical thing, they're as above, so below. So if you're applying some adjustment, above to make the note work. Like if I was going up to C sharp, right? If I'm in A, the band's popping one. And I want to go up to that. Right, C sharp, right, C strings. Right. Now. can go a third below that A2, and instead of thinking of F as a chromatic alteration in the scale of A, I'm just thinking of it as a major third below A. So it's a counterpart to this note. It's like the so I'll go right to it. So because I'll connect the chromatic pitches harmonically instead of like just sticking them in between notes. You know, I would using F as so I mean, you get away with you get away with some stuff with this as you know as above so below. The So if you had a note, right, there's A, and you went above it, right, a third, you go below it a third. You went above it a fifth, go below it a fifth. So you know, a line like that. Like that, you know, even though they're kind of out, they have some balance to them.
You can hear that sound all over the place. I never got that in my ear before now. Thank you.
Okay. Question.
What tones can you get harmonics for? That's what I was wondering before. When you can get a harmonic for a seventh, I mean, I don't really. You split the string in like fractions.
Yeah.
But can you get it for all the tones that you want?
Oh,
I thought
no,
there's
you don't get a harmonic for everything.
Yeah.
You get a harmonic
Which ones
for
can you get?
you get a harmonic for like half the stuff, and the other half you have to turn it around.
But for a seventh, what did you do to get a harmonic for a seventh?
Oh.
I mean, what kind of a fraction is that? Is it like
Seventh. 1/7 of the
a
string.
seventh of the string is
Yeah,
a
yeah.
seventh?
Yeah. So
Seventh
this would be at this sound would be 7/4, right? And at that location, there's one here, 7/4, and there's a pitch at this location, 7/5. Pitch at this location, 7/6.
You're saying 7/6. What does that mean? What do you say 7/6?
Oh. if there's, the string's divided into 7 parts.
Right.
Okay, so this is a ratio. So of 7 parts, right, this would be the sound of 7 parts, 4 parts. 7 on 4 on one side, 3 on the other, and then 7, 5, 7, 6.
7/7 is the non.
Yeah, or 7/1 or something like that. So anyway, so
What are those notes then? The ones that you're getting by sevenths? They're
what are they? They're
in the scale. Which are they all the same?
it's the first one. If we were in E, would be called the sub minor third, and it's you would find its location as the like to find its way home, to see where you're at. It would be the 7th. It would be this sound against E. It's the 7th to the 5th below. You'd be hearing that.
That sounds like the 7th in the E scale, 7th tone.
It's a third, but flat. And then the next one would be the 7th of C, be here. So, your pseudo note. The blue notes. Sub minor third,
Well, that's, I
the
mean,
flat 5, and the flat 7.
why does that happen by dividing it into sevenths?
Why does it happen?
Is that like the only one that, I mean, what if you divide it into eighths, or you get like another set of interesting notes, or?
Eights, no, those would just be multiples of the octave. It's the low prime numbers are the ones that are interesting.
Fifths or
3, 5,
thirds.
7, 9, 11, 13. Those are the ones that are the color. The multiples, 2, 4, and 6 are going to be octaves and fifths again, and they're neat, but they're not new territory. Yeah, it's the odd primes or ones that stand up.
Like character.
Yeah, the color. Yeah, on this chart, that middle batch of pitches, that Pythagorean spine of fifths, that's like structure. Like what's the deal? Like tangled hangers at baseline. Right? It's just, and then there's thirds above that. Thirds below it, you know what I mean? Or sevenths. I mean, that's where the color is, in the thirds and sevenths, obviously. And then the rest of it is where the chords move. Questions? We're going to wrap it up here in a couple minutes, probably. Any questions? Anybody got
How did you come upon all this? It just came to you, or did you look back?
No, man, I had to go out and dig around for a really, really long time.
Look at the
Just
unusual musics of the world. And that
yeah, and have to get back into history, and had to get back into the piano tunings, and get into all the historical temperaments and all the miscellaneous ways people tried to, tried to tune stuff, and why. I mean, the why they might have done it is probably the fascinating part. Again, the basic idea the basic musical idea that we're missing, if you're looking for a basic musical idea, if there's a unifying principle, it's this idea of polarity, that whatever happens, you're going to apply it in some balance. There's going to be as above, so below with everything, and that in those polarities are going to be distinctions that for whatever reason, as humans, we're like stuck with them to this day. We're in some kind of soup with how we respond to these sounds that is inescapable, and it's huge. It's just so all around us that we can't even see it, which makes it fun to look for. But like the basic, like the basic polarities, like sun and moon, you know what I mean? And then we have associations with these where we have, maybe some fucking benevolent sun god, and then you get into the nighttime and it's this occult, witchy energy. And then you've got the masculine and the feminine between the sun and the moon. And then you have trying to keep, track of, like planting the crops back in the day. So the counting suns and moons and reconciling the difference between counting suns and moons. These kind of polarities, and the push and pull of these things are what informs these emotions for us. I mean, just as creatures or whatever, we're still, to this day, at war with those cultures that count moons. I mean, we count suns. My old man, he's sitting there watching the TV, walk in the house. Hi, Dad. He'll be watching Fox News and say some shit like, fucking Ramadan comes on a different day every year. And I'm like, they got a different calendar. And it's like, the Chinese are still counting moons, and the Persians are still counting moons. We're counting suns. This sun and moon thing, man, never stopped being like, there never stopped being a polarization there where there's a, whatever it is, male and female, all these things. I mean, if you're a musician, and a bunch of guys here, no offense to the ladies, but if you're a musician and you got a girlfriend, you've come to odds with the solar and the lunar cycles, You're on a 30-day billing cycle, with the sun, and then you've got the menstrual cycle, and the bills, and the moon come at the wrong time, and you're screwed. You learn to see your way through these waves, But I mean, that's harmony. That's harmony, reconciling these polarities, the difference between the frets and the strings. The two different polarities. It's one system. It's all there all the time,
Well, I've
but
always
it's
noticed you're
completely
playing,
different things.
and it's like, whoa, no one plays loud like you.
Were you influenced by Mike Bloomfield, East West?
Well, not because of the title, but I was a huge Bloomfield fan.
Well, the East West. I mean, he mixed the Eastern with
No,
the Western, and then it was blues.
He played. Well, I mean, he played.
The first jam type song.
He had some Jewish stuff going on too. He had some klezmer or something going on in there, in there too. Yeah, but he had some great ethnic take on it. But Bloomfield, obviously, a couple of those guys early on, Bloomfield, Peter Green, unbelievable. But that's what you're going to be experiencing if you look into this thing, is that polarity. And as you look at these harmonies, if you can bring yourself to fucking face it, with the music, because it's fun to investigate things sitting in your lap, look at the string, find your way on the string and the fret too, and see how they go together. Eventually, what you see is like the old sense of harmony. It's just things as they are together. It's just things as they are together. And you get in a room to play with people, and it's not going to be about it's this chord, it's that chord. It's just about
Perfect.
It's the harmony. It's the harmony of the gathering. It's the things as they are together. And so that's what I'm going for when I'm doing it. That's because because you people, or people like you, show up at the gig, right? And as soon as there's that community, and as soon as the music's actually being used for something, all the rest of that stuff that you might think you want to learn about music, where you go in a book and you look, and it's like, there's a C chord and a C minor chord and an F sharp chord. All of that stuff goes right out the window, you know, when you're actually trying to, you know, connect somehow. And so, you know, what I'm saying is the stuff that connects is that harmony that you can connect to. Sit with the guitar and tune and listen and feel what it feels like when you just, you know, hit the note and relate to that and let that kind of spread out from there. That's what we're doing, right? Hopefully.
Is there any kind of music that you would recommend listening to, or you know, trying to figure out that would help, like Moroccan music, or is it just kind of like?
Oh no, just you know what? Scroll around on Atlas of Plucked Instruments, and look for some stuff that you like, and you'll find some fantastic stuff. But personally, I just I'll listen to anything, you know. I mean, I'll go for a month without listening to anything but Bob Marley, and then I'll go for a month without listening to anything but Ali Akbar Khan. Yeah, just you know, just
see what sounds like.
Yeah, just enjoy what you enjoy, but do you know, take that opportunity to gut check yourself for real with the instrument and start like tuning into what happens when the sound hits, and tuning into what happens when you get the notes in tune, they're sounding good.
I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about writing music.
Writing music?
Yeah, like how you, the process of writing a song.
We've got a couple more minutes here if you want.
Not
Otherwise
just
we're running
briefly,
out.
I mean, anything.
I almost never write without a reason to write. I need a reason to write. I don't get up in the morning and write a fucking song. You know what I mean? Something has to happen that makes me, you know, like open that box and start pulling stuff out, you know. Sometimes I'll just get a little snatch of melody in my head that won't go away, a little ear or a little worm, and I'll have to deal with it, you know, so I'll write the song. You know. A couple of chords. Sometimes I'll think of words, and the words make me write a song. But usually what happens is I'll be working with a bunch of guys, and we'll have a bunch of material, and I'll go, we don't have any this. You know, it's like, oh, we need a ballad, or we need a rocker, or we need something with a lot of tempo, or we need one more of these little puzzle box kind of numbers everybody has fun playing and listening to. Don't play real long, we don't really improvise on it, just kind of goes by. Or whatever, and then I'll put that together. To do that, you know, so my personal writing often happens just to fill that need. You know what I mean? So
when you go Tango Hangers, were you writing that song for a while till you felt like, oh yeah, this sounds good with this part, and then eventually manifested to where this is what it is, or did you go for that?
That song is written? I thought it just existed.
Is that like one of your old songs you've always been fucking around with? Oh, I get to do something.
oh yeah, we've been fucking around with that forever. That was Steve Wolf. That was just something he liked to play.
So it's that group collectiveness and everyone being.
God bless him. Anybody else? And we can wrap it up.
I played with a guy lately who's been going on and on about 528 hertz being like the frequency of the body, soul or something, and therefore we should tune 417 hertz, tune out 8. Have you heard anything about that? And what do you
Yeah.
I have.
Yeah.
You know, that's a good question. Personally, I don't think it matters. I think, what it looks like to me is that what we're responding to are the resonances of harmony. So, you know, if I hear that puts me somewhere. If I hear that, puts me somewhere. Come on now. How fucking bluesy is that? I mean, that's just getting that seventh where it's supposed to go, you know, getting the... You know, you just do it till it tickles, right? I think we respond to harmony. I think we respond to shape and gesture and everything but reference pitch. I can't find a way to make the reference pitch thing stick. Come on, I know some really, really, really heavy cats. I mean, I know some, you know, like just, and they don't have reference pitch. It's not part of the thing, you know. The old guys didn't have it. The fucking Indians don't have it. The American Indians don't have it. Nobody has a reference pitch until they have enough technology to create enough instruments that people need to play together enough that they argue about it, and then there's reference pitch. You know what I mean? I mean, left to your own devices, you'll tune the thing to whatever's comfortable. And you'll sing wherever your body resonates, and that's different for males, females, big guys, little guys, different. You know, so I'll bet that's not it. I think that there's a. I'm pretty sure there's a whole bunch of people that tune down because it sounds better, because we've done this goofiest fucking thing for which we will never be forgiven as a culture. We've got everything that runs on electricity is like on 60 cycles, which is a quarter step out of tune with our reference pitch. So everywhere you go where there's a fucking fan or a ventilation system, where there's a pump, a refrigerator, a motor of any kind, and you go to play, it just sounds funny, you know what I mean? So if you're sitting there in your apartment smoking a joint with your acoustic guitar, you're going to wind up tuned to the refrigerator. You're going to tune to the fucking refrigerator. It's like, it sounds better, and everybody tunes flat because, oh, why do I like E flat so much better? Well, you know, put down the bomb and go outside, tune to whatever, you know, but yeah. So I mean, we have sort of a technological reference default to the 60 cycle hum. That's, you know, you can hear it now.
So if you're off grid, you can.
But if you're off the grid, I mean, like for many years, you know, I was doing the sheep ranch thing. I didn't have a refrigerator, nothing, not a motor, not a noise in the house. It's perfect. I had a little wood stove and a nylon string guitar, and I look out the window, watch the sheep play jazz, you know. It was very peaceful, man, and there was no, and then when I moved back to town, everything was like, oh, God. Anybody else? We're going to wrap it up.
Steve, I got a quick one.
Sure.
What made you bring the wah back out? Or did you ever play a wah before? The last couple of years I've noticed that you
I played a wah-wah when I was 16 and then dropped it for 40 years.
Yeah, I noticed that.
And then, no reason. It was just like, I should try a wah-wah. And I was like, oh, this is fun.
You were getting some great, like, late 60s Jerry tones at the Zero show 2 weekends ago.
With the wah-wah.
Yeah, and it's just that totally filtered noise. I was like, that's something I'd never heard out of you before, really, out of that tone. And I'm a tone guy, so I love all of your tone and all of your, I mean, if you want to talk about your amps or something, if you have a moment, I would love to hear about it.
Oh, yeah, you know what? One more thing and we'll wrap up and we can talk about that. like if you looked specifically for timbre and like what all the rest of that stuff is besides pitch and amplitude in the music, a big part of it is micro intonation, okay? And so any discussion of how things sound is just going to sort of fall apart without discussing what the intonation of those things are. Because if you can get the shit in tune so that it locks in the overtone series and the rest of the stuff that you're hearing, that's when it gets fat. Stuff sums. And not only does it sum, but it creates these additional, you know, like subharmonics and this fatness and stuff, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I can play with a skinnier tone and get fatter stuff happening than somebody would play with a skinnier tone if there wasn't this intonation.
So yeah, I mean, and certainly you can see that as a layer. Would be a filter. A lot of that overtone out.
Yeah, you got to include that. A lot of the stuff on the last deal wouldn't work if it wasn't, you know, getting into some of those spots. Because when it gets into the spot, it sounds fat. When it gets out of it, it sounds
thin. Yeah. But yeah, like the note from Cole's Law, you seem to be able to hit with almost any slide and any. It's like that timbre of that overtone in the scale is just like, you know, that moment every time, you know.
Yeah.
And then I usually scream.
Well, there's others. There's some physical technique that goes on with hitting some of those notes to get the big fundamental, which is what you're talking about. We're talking about the melody fundamental. If you're picking the string up and letting it slap back against the fret, it's going to hit in the middle first, and that's going to cancel the fundamental. So there's no power stroke that brings the string back in contact with the fret. So the most you can possibly do to like pop a note out, right, is to get the string down as far as the fret, and then kind of sidestep it. And anybody here was a motorhead when they were a kid, and you step on the gas and you step on the clutch and you sidestep the clutch and the car goes.
Yeah.
Right.
So
Well, it's the same thing, right? So I take the first finger and like if I want to play this A up here, right, and I just push it down onto the fret. I'm pushing it down onto the neck, and then I just push through. Right?
Yeah.
Now if I was picking up, you know, or thumb, but here. So. The same thing with some of these high double stops, where a lot of guys would play it thumb down, finger up. I'll play it thumb, finger again, and push through to avoid getting that the thin thing rather than plink back up against the string. So
pushing it all the way to the surface.
Yeah, pushing the string right down to the neck, and then letting it pop back up. You know, ballistically, it can't make it back down to the fret to crap out. So for me, I mean, that's like at the top of the neck. That's the power move isn't pulling on the string; it's just holding it down and
yeah, it just rings so true.
Pushing through, yeah. Bang, that string pop.
It doesn't have like the sort of overtone fuzziness on just that note or whatever. It's just like boom.
Right, yeah. Yeah, exactly. But that's, the two things that aren't happening there is I'm not taking a little plastic pick and whacking it back here or picking the string up and letting it hit the fret. I get as much possible swing out of the fundamental as I can. I got the string pretty much right in the middle and just letting it hop off.
Thank you.
Okay, everybody. Thank you very much.
Find more at Kimock's Corner at Kimock.com. Keep coming back.
Wait for another update in another couple of years.
What's that?
Wait for another update to come out.
We're working on that. Ah, man who visits. We like that.
Oh man.